up, everybody, and welcome to the Cyber News with Shantaye. I am your hostess, Shantaye, and this is being brought to you by Dominion IT Solution for all your IT needs. Now, before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, and hit the notification bell so you will be the first to know whenever new content is being released. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, first up, the California Attorney General fines Sephora $1.2 million for data privacy violation. So, first off, if you don't know, Sephora is a large multinational retailer for personal care and beauty products. So, ladies, you know, Sephora, I don't know about everybody else, but Sephora is I love Sephora. But they were found violating the Privacy Act. So in 2018, there was the California Consumer Privacy Act that was approved. It wasn't being enforced until 2020, but the reason that this act came about was due to data breaches. They found out that a lot of people's information was being exposed. And when I'm talking about information, I'm talking about whatever you had with the company and they retained that information, it was there. So when they were breached, the attackers had it, and the rest of it. Of course, identity theft, you name it, it happened. So this act came about where pretty much businesses have to let people know what data that they're getting from them and how they share it. And then they also have to allow people the opportunity to go ahead and opt out. And then on top of that, they're able to tell these businesses to remove all of the information that was collected on them. Furthermore, it also stops the companies from being able to penalize consumers with higher rates or fewer services for exercising their privacy rights and from selling their information, especially for children under 16 without their explicit consent. So, pretty much how they did this was, and I was doing a lot of digging around because this was a really interesting article. Sephora is like one of the first companies that was this was being enforced on in California, and so Sephora went back and forth and said that, well, it didn't explicitly say that it can't sell, and you know how that goes. But the Attorney General of California mentioned that they were looking at the global privacy control. So if you're not familiar with global privacy control, pretty much it's a specification that's designed to allow people on the internet to let businesses know about their privacy preferences. So if you don't want them to track you or sell your information, you can tell them no. And there's actually a browser for that. If you go to globalprivacycontrol.org, you can actually download a browser extension and send a request to the website that you visit and let them know that you don't want to be tracked and you don't want your information to be sold. And they're supposed to abide by that. Well, apparently that wasn't happening with Sephora. And another thing was that companies were trying to get around that by forcing people to click on a link on their page every time they visit the website to say not to sell my information and not to track me, which is ridiculous. So they tried to get around it. California Attorney General was like, you're not getting by with that. So apparently there is they have a 30-day grace period to rectify it when they're notified. Um, and Sephora is not the only one. There's other companies. They didn't mention the other companies in the article, but they did say that there's other companies that that were sent a notice saying that they had to comply, and it was over 112 companies actually. So they get this 30-day grace period. But guess what? at the beginning of 2023, that grace period is going out the door. So you know what happens? Whenever they find a violation, they're going to they're going to go ahead and take it to court. There is no, you get 30 days, make sure you fix it. No. At the beginning of 2023, if you don't have your stuff together, you're going to be in the news just like Sephora. So the only thing I could tell you is get it together. But make sure you stay in the know. A lot of times there's a link on websites. There's supposed to be a link on a website that you visit that tells you about cookies. Cookies are used to track what you do, the activity on the website. They can take geolocation information. They can look and see what you're buying, and they can sell that to third party companies. And that sends you advertisements. So you'll say, "Oh, I was just looking at." So say for instance, you go to Walmart.com and you're looking at a suitcase. Then you go to YouTube and you watch a video, and then there's an ad in between. And there's an ad for, guess what? Suitcases. That's where that comes from. There's generally a pop up that tells you what they use that information for and how they track it. And you have the option to opt out of certain cookies. So make sure you pay attention to that because a lot of people are probably just clicking past that pop up. But if you're one of those people that you don't like to get all those advertisements, or you're sitting there wondering, like, well, how did they know that I was just looking at that? Because you're being tracked and you're allowing it. So please be mindful of the websites that you're visiting. Because when a company is breached and all of your information is there, then you're risking identity theft. That's another headache. So just do yourself a favor and make sure that you're taking a look at the websites that you're visiting and making sure that you're looking at the pop-ups concerning cookies and privacy. Because there's privacy pop-ups as well that talks about how your data is being used. So that's it for me. We're going. All right. Next up, we have another data breach involving Plex, which is a popular streaming service. I personally don't have Plex, but I know a lot of people that use this service. So last week, they sent out an email to their customers, letting them know that they were able to discover that there was some suspicious activity on one of the databases. They did the investigation. They did figure out that it was a threat actor, and they were able to access the database that had the emails, usernames, and encrypted passwords. They did say that the technique that they use for their encrypting their passwords, they weren't concerned about the threat actor being able to access the accounts. However, out of caution, they advise users to reset the passwords. So if you're a Plex user and you haven't checked your emails or you haven't heard it on the news, Plex was hacked. It was breached. They were able to access customer information, and it's being advised that you reset your password. They also mentioned that you need to check the box that says, uh, make sure that you log off out of all of your devices. So make sure that you do that as well. They also mentioned that you can enable multi-factor authentication. Pretty much, that's providing another layer of security to be able to access your account. So there is an article on their site that they're recommending some authenticator apps to provide the authentication code after you log in with your username and password. Then you can go to that authenticator app and provide the code to be able to access your account. So that was something else that they did recommend. This information is not on their website. I went to their website and they have yet to post it there. So just in case you don't know, please make sure that you do that and follow those steps. You can Google it. You can go to variety.com and you'll see some of the information there. All right, thank you guys. All right, next up we have DoorDash. So last week, DoorDash reported on their blog, on their website, that they were compromised through a third party vendor, which involved a phishing incident. So if you're not aware, a phishing incident can be email based and it's pretty much like a fake email. So say that you see an email and it looks like it's from Walmart.com and it's telling you that you have a pickup order that's waiting for you and you know you haven't placed a pickup order. And then they have a link within the email that says confirm this pickup order. And then when you click on the link, it asks you to confirm your identity by putting in that information. But if you know that you didn't place an order for pickup for Walmart, then you shouldn't be receiving that email. If you take a closer look at the email address, you'll see that it wasn't from Walmart. So pretty much that's what it is. It's a threat actor faking that they're actually the sender in the email to get you to provide them with your credentials. So basically, that's what happened. In regards to DoorDash, it was actually a third party vendor that was compromised in the phishing incident. And because they were a third party vendor of DoorDash, they had access to DoorDash's internal system. So with that, the threat actor was able to access DoorDash internal system and was able to access some of the data. Now, once DoorDash was made aware of the activity, they were able to disconnect from that third party vendor or sever all connections with that third party vendor to eject the threat actor. So they did send out a message letting users and customers know what was affected. So pretty much it was the names, email address, delivery addresses, and phone numbers. The blog also says that there was a notification sent to a smaller set of consumers that involved basic order information and partial payment card information, which is like the card type and the last four of the card number. And also for the dashers, their information was accessed as well. So it included their name, phone number, and email address as well. They also go into stating the information that wasn't accessed, which included passwords, full payment card numbers, bank account numbers, or social security or social insurance numbers. And then they go on into detail about what they're actually doing in response to the incident. But they did make mention that this was part of a hack from earlier in the month with Twilio, where the Twilio employees were also part of the phishing incident, but this one involved SMS, where the threat actor was pretty much acting like they were somebody else that was familiar to the employees and were able to get them to provide their credentials, and then they were able to compromise the network. So pretty much that's it for the DoorDash incident. Now, the last time DoorDash had an data breach was back in 2019, and that pretty much exposed 5 million customers. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Next up in the cyber news, we have Baker and Taylor, which is a major library supplier. They are almost 200-year-old company. They are the largest supplier of library content, software, and services to the public and academic libraries in the U.S. So, Baker and Taylor published on their website last week that around August 19th, that weekend, they were compromised in a ransomware attack. And if you're not familiar with the ransomware attack, pretty much it's a piece of malware that will go into a network and it will encrypt the data. And the only way that you'll be able to access the data is if you have a decryption key. But in order to obtain a decryption key, you have to pay the ransom, henceforth, ransomware. So, and if you don't pay the ransom, of course, your system is encrypted. If you don't have backups, a good known backup where you can restore the system, that may be problemsome. And there are some companies out there that pay the ransom. Some companies don't, some companies do. It just boils down to what the condition of their IT department is and how their processes are at the time. So they've been working since that weekend to remediate and get back online. They recently posted an update today that they're still working around the clock to return to full operations. Um, hope they mentioned that hopefully they'll be back up and running, maybe around towards the end of the week. But yeah, that's pretty sad. But yeah, so they don't mention in the art. They don't mention on their site if they paid the ransom. Um, sounds like they didn't because they're still trying to recover. Because typically, if you pay the ransom and you get the decryption key, you can, decrypt your data and go back online. But it is what it is. So that's it for this one, guys.